Back in the Stone Ages, there were humans and there was Latitude, the Dell Latitude. Alright, well, maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but that's how antique this series of Dell laptops actually feel. Today, though, we've got the current generation Dell Latitude 5000 right here with us, and while it comes in a great many configurations, the one we have here specifically includes Intel's 12th generation i7 1265U series processor with vPro technology, 16GB of DDR4 memory. We also have a 512GB solid-state drive on board. Additionally, we do have Intel's integrated Iris Xe graphics. Past that, we do have Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5 standards on board. Additionally, this thing comes with Windows 10 by default, but you can upgrade it to Windows 11, which is exactly what I've done, and this is the 15-inch variant of this laptop. Now, the Latitude is in a very competitive landscape. There are plenty of business laptops out there, and it really has to fight to keep its reputation. In this review, we're going to see if the current gen can do that. In terms of packaging contents, the Latitude comes in a plain black box. Creativity was never Dell's forte. However, it's inside what counts, and inside you'll find a number of distinct contents. So first and foremost, once you open the box, you will find the laptop itself. Remove that protective packaging, and here it is, the Latitude 5000 itself in the flesh. Past that, you have a 65-watt charging adapter, and get this, it comes with USB-C charging right out of the box. Love it. You also, of course, have the standard wall outlet charging cable piece, and finally some documentation that's pretty standard material with most laptops. Traditionally speaking, Latitudes have been known to have a deliberately chunky and rugged design. They were often known as the field business laptops. In more recent times, however, Dell has adopted a more mainstream look for them. So they have flat designs, so they have those linear edges, kind of like the Inspiron series, which is more or less in line with a lot of other business laptops out there. However, the most disappointing element of this laptop is its inferior build quality. You pay quite a bit of money for this laptop. In return, you get a full plastic build. I mean, everything from top to bottom is fully plastic. This laptop does not feel premium in the slightest. I mean, compare this to the similarly priced T14 Gen 3 by Lenovo, and that is a full magnesium alloy build. So in that regard, Dell really dropped the ball. You're just not getting the kind of quality you'd expect with a laptop of this class. With that said, the laptop has a modest weight of about 3.5 pounds, which is more or less in line with a 15-inch laptop. Starting with the top of the laptop, like I mentioned, you have a pure plastic finish here, though it is professional and subtle looking, so it does have that business appeal at least, and of course you have that shiny Dell logo in the center. The sides of this laptop are a very happening place. So on one side you have two fully loaded Thunderbolt 4 ports. That's right, that means you have DisplayPort and power delivery functionality built right in. You also have this large heat exhaust vent area. On the other side, you'll find a lock slot, but past that you have a RJ45 Ethernet jack, a HDMI 2.0 port. You also have two USB-A 3.2 ports, one of which supports power delivery as well. And then past that you have the good old headphone jack, and interestingly enough you have a micro SD card reader. Why not just make it a full-sized SD card reader? It's so much more practical, but I guess we have something. Overall though, port selection isn't half bad. The bottom side of this laptop reveals a few interesting things. So you do have a plastic surface finish at the bottom. However, what you'll notice is you do have two heat exhaust vents at the very top side. Now, concerningly enough, you have a very small amount of air intake area for the single cooling fan. And this does have dramatic thermal repercussions, which I'll talk about a little bit later on in the video. Other than that, you do have two speaker grills at the bottom, meaning this is a bottom firing speaker setup, and we'll do a sound test later on as well. Unfolding this laptop reveals another bittersweet moment. Simply put, on one side that gray tone looks so nice with the inner chassis, but on the other hand you immediately realize this also has a flimsy plastic finish. Now with that said, the trackpad is one of the better parts of this laptop. So while you do have a plastic surface finish, you have a decent amount of surface real estate, and on top of that, it's a very tactile and precise trackpad. Despite having a plastic finish, there's not a lot of flex, and it just feels like a really well implemented tool. The keyboard here is of decent variety. So you'll notice you have well labeled keycaps, and they are slightly more raised than your average laptop, presumably for more key travel. You'll also notice that the keyboard is fully backlit, and yes, you do have the inclusion of a 10 key number pad with the 15-inch variant. On the top right corner, you have a built-in fingerprint scanner, which also of course doubles as a power button. Now, I do want to mention, as far as typing experience goes, it's just not as refined as what you find on Dell's own XPS or Inspiron series. It feels more shallow and less tactile, though the keycaps are more reinforced and arguably more durable. It's by no means a bad keyboard, but it just isn't top tier either. Hey everyone, if you're enjoying the content, I'm super happy to hear that. Please consider subscribing to this channel and liking this video. It genuinely helps me grow and allows me to provide more content just like this. Let's carry on. The hinge quality, on the other hand, is exceptionally well done. So you have metal enforced 2-tier hinge mechanisms here, and believe me when I say this thing is so well calibrated and tuned. It doesn't feel too tight nor too loose. It doesn't wobble a whole lot, and I love that you have a near 180-degree tilt over here. It should definitely last for the years to come. Display fitting is also of average variety, so you have a relatively thin chin at the bottom with some basic Dell branding. On the sides, again, you have fairly thin bezels that are more or less in line with modern day standards. On the top, you again have a pretty thin forehead, though get this, at the center of it all, you have a built-in IR scanner, and you have this awesome full HD webcam that honestly is pretty darn good in both daylight and relatively low light settings. Display quality is a bit of a complicated affair simply because there are multiple displays available, but the base configuration here has a full HD resolution, you have a 60Hz refresh rate. Additionally, you have a high quality IPS panel with fantastic viewing angles. You do have a matte finish for the display, which is important because you only have a peak brightness of just 250 nits, which means outdoors and in bright settings, the screen is easily overcome by the sheer amount of glare that comes on here. Unfortunately, there's no way around this unless you opt for the more powerful display configuration, which is thankfully available. Now, with that said, you only have a color accuracy rating of approximately 56% sRGB, meaning color sensitive activities like photo or video editing, for example, might not be the most ideal task for this laptop, so keep that in your considerations as well. Performance on this laptop is a slippery slope because there are a ton of processor configurations. You can get this in a U, P, or H series Intel chip, and because of that, of course, it will vary. However, this laptop does suffer from performance issues entirely because of the way it's engineered, in my opinion. So, of course, with that i7 U series chip we have here, day-to-day activities like web browsing or watching videos or number of countries are going to be a super smooth experience, as they should. More demanding activities like coding, 3D modeling, data analytics work smooth enough. Most of the times it's a pretty nice experience thanks to that 16GB of RAM we have. However, when you start really pushing this laptop to its limit by, let's say, doing 4K video editing, despite the i7 chip and 16GB of RAM, you have a fair bit of frame drops, and it's a very choppy and borderline laggy experience. Why is that? It's not the hardware, it's simply because this laptop heats up far too often. Again, thermal throttling issues. Now, while I wouldn't recommend a business laptop for gaming purposes, yes, you can game in a casual capacity. Most older titles would easily run between lower to medium settings at a healthy 30 plus FPS at the native resolution, which isn't too shabby. This is one hot laptop, and I do not mean that in a compliment in any way or form. I mean, quite literally, it can hit average surface temperatures right around 47 degrees Celsius under unrealistic peak loads. Even more realistic sustained loads will yield you around 43 degrees Celsius, which is still far too warm for comfort. Now, on top of that, you only have a single fan for the entire device, which is why you have a little bit of thermal throttling going on over here. Fan noise, on the other hand, isn't too bad. It can hit around 47 decibels under maximum load. Perhaps it should be higher though, so this laptop can run a little cooler. With a 58 watt-hour battery, you can get around 9 to 9.5 hours of battery life on a single charge doing day-to-day productivity. Of course, your mileage will vary depending on what you're doing, but these numbers aren't too bad. Now, in terms of sound quality, it's actually pretty decent. While you're not going to get MacBook level speakers here, the bottom firing speakers do get fairly loud, and there's not a whole lot of distortion even at higher volume levels, and I was pretty impressed. Have a quick listen for yourself. So here's the summary, guys. Starting at approximately $900 for the bare bone base configuration and going all the way up to $2,000, the Latitude 5000 laptop is not a cheap machine. However, I feel like at that price point, it's just not as good as a lot of the competition. For example, the fact that you have a full plastic build here just does not make sense, especially when you consider the fact that direct competitors like ThinkPad's T-Series or HP with their Dragonfly series have far superior build qualities. On top of that, performance here, while respectable thanks to all the configurations Dell offers, just is never going to live up to its own expectations simply because the engineering, the thermal department here is quite questionable, and even if you do get a more powerful version of this laptop, you're just going to have a lot of thermal throttling going on thanks to that single fan setup. Now, other than that, there are certain respectable traits about this machine. For example, you have a fantastic hinge, a great trackpad, decent keyboard, and also what I consider to be one of the best webcams I've used on a laptop recently. But I don't think these qualities alone are enough to give it the competitive edge it needs against some of the other laptops I mentioned in this class category, and I just think that this laptop falls a little short. So my opinion, if you get the Latitude 5000 on a nice discount, definitely it's a business productivity laptop you'll want to consider. But if you are paying full price, then I think the other options, like I said, definitely have more value and bang for the buck. Let me know what you think of Dell's Latitude 5000 series. If you own one, let me know about your experiences. As always, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing to this channel and liking this video. Catch you in the next one.